My name's Lindsay McDougall. I play guitar in Frenzal Rhomb. I've done that for about 20 years this year, which is quite scary. And I spent 10 years on radio on Triple J, did the breakfast show for 5 years, and then did afternoons between 3 and 5:30 for 5 years as well. And now I'm effectively unemployed. And here I am, which means I've got time to talk to you.
Wonderful. Okay, well, that's worth it then. Okay, let's jump in with a connection on the Adelaide Vegan Festival. I haven't spoken to you before, obviously, so could you elaborate where just you sit so I've got a general idea on the issue to do with animal rights and veganism and where you would put yourself and all that without trying to box you or anything? Just give me a sense of, where you fit into all that as a human being.
Yeah, I mean, the stats are pretty simple. I went vegan, I went vegetarian about 20 years ago when I joined Frenzal Rhomb because they told me to. And then I went vegan pretty soon after that. You do that thing where you realise that veganism's one thing, vegetarianism's one thing, but, veganism sort of makes more sense. Yep. And since then, I've gone through lots of different stages. There's a different versions of veganism or outward veganism. There's the real, very passionate, loud, dickhead vegan that likes to yell at people. There was once we played a show in Newcastle and a couple of people came up to get an autograph in the car park after the show, and I yelled at them because they were holding a McDonald's bag. So I was that vegan for a while. I was the vegan where I would just espouse facts at everyone and get very grumpy at people and, do things like not like to, if I smelt leather, I'd get all angry and all that sort of thing. And I guess now, getting close to my sort of 18th year of being a vegan, I've settled into the just live a really good life and eat really good food and show people how rad it is. And people might, pick up on your scent sort of vegan.
Yeah. So how old are you now?
I'm 38.
38. Okay. So
I don't look a day over 37 and a half, I know.
So what's the drive, what is it about being a vegan then that is the core of it? Like, obviously it's people can see it as a lifestyle or a diet. Is it a choice for you? Or, you're talking as if it's just sort of a natural progression and in a sort of a conscious state, that's where you would end up. What is it for you from that point of view? And how deeply is it connected to your feelings for the suffering of other living beings?
Yeah, I think the diet thing is important because that's, what you eat. But I don't think, it's not like this whole hand-wringing po-face, oh my God, I've got to do this. I don't want to be that kind of a guy that sort of, is slapping whipping their back as they walk down the street kind of vegan. I've sort of come to this place, like it's vegan, the diet and the suffering of animals it all comes down to just this whole vibe of just doing the nice things and being, not. What's the doctor's? Well, this is. I didn't realise this is a joke because people call me the doctor. But the whole just do no harm mantra, which doctors are supposed to have. Just being nice to people and things, and not being a prick, and just it seems so simple. And except then you realise that half the world or more are made up of, at least the more visible people in the world are made up of people who seem to actively seek out to do harm to other people and things. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it just comes under that giant banner of just be nice, and it seems very simple. That doesn't mean to say you have to be always smiling and happy, or you don't have to be permissive of, and sort of, and let everyone do things, that you don't agree with. You haven't got to be walked over and stuff in your quest to be nice. But if on some, I sort of end up doing nicer things than I do not nice things, then that's a pretty good day, I reckon. That was very convoluted a philosophy.
Yeah. So why do you think it is then? Like, you were sort of saying how simple it is, and I agree. You're presenting it, we all need to be nice to each other. I guess humans have been aware of that, and it's written in the Bible, and it's been around for a long time. Why do you think it is that here we are in 2016 and we're struggling as a species to really be honest and real with each other, to be nice, like what you're saying? Like, we can't be nice to animals, we can't really be nice to each other. There's a lot of people that feel we're learning and growing and improving in society, but there's a lot of evidence that would speak to the contrary. Why do you think it is it's taking us so long? What do you think holds us trapped? Why are we struggling so much as a species?
There are a few things that I think make our world that mean we're heading towards destruction, and one of them is the way that we treat each other, and one of them, I think, the idea that everything has to get bigger all the time, and this can be tied into whatever dickhead invented the stock market, or whoever thought that you couldn't just exist. Like I've got friends who they run businesses and they're doing really well, and suddenly someone says, oh no, you've got to go and open another shop, you've got to open another business, you've got to do this, you've got to register on the stock market, you've got to do all this thing. Like that is just one version of, okay, so the world demands that you do more and that you sell more and that you make more. You can't just exist in this one little piece of the world that you've dug out for yourself. You've got to make it bigger. You've got to go further, and the world. It's very easy to do that these days because you can do stuff on the internet and you can get around the world very, very quickly. But as a result, people are constantly being forced to expand not only their businesses or their reach, but also their needs. And you've got to get the new thing and all this. It's God. Now I sound like some horrible U2 song. But it's just like in that desire to always to expand, that we, as a result, we end up doing bad things to other people. And this happens in lots of very simple ways. To continue being profitable, for example, in a business, there are a few ways to do it. You can charge more for stuff, but people don't want to pay more for stuff. So then you have to pay less for the things that you get, whether that means if you are, say, a supermarket paying less to farmers, or you're a business paying less to your workers, which incidentally the government just made very easy with their $4 an hour internship bullshit in the most recent budget. All of these things they're tied in, these things and other things that I can't think of right now, they're tied in to the way that you grow your business, that you grow yourself. And people do that by effectively pushing other people down. And the same obviously goes for animals, because in this crazy race to the bottom, the industrialization and agriculture, blah, 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 means that you have to treat animals worse and worse and worse, put them into smaller enclosures, put more of them in there, pay far less attention to their welfare, to then be able to sell them at a cheaper price, to then sell to the consumers who want to pay less. They want to pay less. And as many people as you'll hear say, oh no, I'm fine paying more for this. Really, when it comes down to it, people want cheap stuff. And that's the same with shoes, that's the same with eggs, that's the same with, with services. And so the world exists in a way that we need to grow ourselves and build ourselves. But the only way you can do that in a finite world is by pushing other people and things down.
Yeah.
And that's why people can't be good to other people and things. The end. I reckon.
So do you feel then, like if you had to give me your, because some people seem to have diverging opinions on this, but obviously there's one truth to it. Are we improving as a species in terms of how we interact with the planet and society? Or do you think that we're in some delusional state, thinking that we're actually on a downward spiral to ultimate destruction? Meaning if we kept doing what you're talking about, which appears to me to be the technique of life, it hasn't changed from that point of view throughout the history of humanity. So that's obviously the nature of the beast. Do you think we're improving or going downhill? Because I sort of feel like it's got to be one or the other. There's no way we're stagnant. There's too much going on.
Yeah, but I think that there's different ways to look at it, and it's the way. So our planet exists in a solar system with a bunch, in a universe, lots of different universes, etc. And I think that map of the universe, that map of what exists, can be brought down to these levels. It's a really weird way to put it, but the Earth, and the depressing thing is that on a global scale, we are hurtling towards destruction in a horrible way, because everything keeps growing, and we're using the resources of 3.5 planets or whatever it was that Paul Gilding from Greenpeace said, and that's horrible, and that is, when you think about it, it's really depressing. And on a governmental scale in different worlds, in different countries, horrible things are happening, and you see it all the time. There's good things happen, but also horrible things happen. Steps forward, leaps backward. But on a personal level, in my own personal life and the personal lives of my friends in Australia and all over the world, I think that we are making improvements. And that's why I think it can be both ways, because on this sort of local level, I know that my friends, and this is, like, my friends are predominantly doing the right thing, and I know that that is a really blinkered view, and that sort of that blinkered view leads to people going, well, how could anyone vote for these people? Or, why does anyone like Justin Bieber? Because they refuse to look outside their own scope, But I think that these little local groupings are more common than they used to be for whatever reason. And one of the reasons is because people are more aware of things. And so, they want to do the right thing, and that happens on a local level. You will buy from local, you buy local produce, or you won't buy from sweatshops. You'll just, buy from local manufacturers or op shops or whatever. And you won't waste stuff. Also, because you can more easily, because of the way information is sent these days, do things that are better for the world on a local level. So I think that is happening, and also because of the way the information is sent, and so there's more reason to do it because you can show off. People love showing off if they've done, you go on the farmer's market and bought cool things, or I like showing off when I go to a delicious restaurant that happens to be vegan, and you post the thing, you don't make a big deal about it, but so I like sort of showing those sort of things off. So on a smaller level, I think we're doing these right things, and so on a small local level, the other reason is because people are forced to act more locally as well, because if they're being crushed on by these larger forces, they're forced to act more, live smaller, more locally. I think, in my head that makes sense. So whilst the world is hurtling towards destruction by what we're doing, these small little pockets of niceness, I think, are nice to sort of just jump between them, like a tadpole, like a frog, whatever the ones that use the things on the lake. I'm not a frog guy. Yes, all right, science with McDougall.
Here we are jumping around from lily pad to lily pad.
Lily pad.
And these lily pads are all full of love and joy and intelligence and awareness. But the rest of the lake is like all corrupt and sick, and if you jump in, you'll probably drown of something horrific. So how are these few little lily pads of awareness going to change the world, do you think? Because to me, there's still a collective force to be recognised. And yes, I agree with you. There are pockets. I know a few, not a lot, but there are definitely good people in this world that are attempting to look at the truth. There's also a lot of other good people that do not have the ability to look at the truth because of their own fears and insecurities. So it doesn't mean they're bad people. They're just good people trapped in a small space. And unfortunately, I think the majority of human beings, if given the opportunity to sit in the truth, would probably do the right thing. If we can agree that the right thing is somewhat along the lines of how you're talking about, human behavior. But I guess the thing that I'm, would like to start discussions going and to have people listen and think about is, this is real and this is happening, right? We can philosophize about it. We can make documentaries about it. We can have politicians going on about what they think is right and wrong. The end result is, it would appear that we're on a downward spiral. And one of the reasons I use as evidence, and even though I'm counteracted by certain people for that, the psychological status of human beings is getting worse. It's not getting better. And that's not just because I work in that field or industry. That's observable. Just the nature of how we function, the fact that we need more laws all the time. Everything's getting so tight. Like every day there's a new law because some scared person demands it. And then we're trying to overprotect ourselves, and now suddenly you get picked up for speeding at 63 Ks, and so everything keeps us on edge. And all this technology hasn't made our lives easier, even though it allows us to do things like what we're doing now, so it can be utilized. But the end result is we end up stuck in this busy world with multiple choices, which just stresses us out. Always terrified. No one really has real conversations with each other. Social media and Facebook, most of the time people are just talking shit. And then you get, young people's generation today. They think talking to each other is texting. They call it talking. Oh yeah, I spoke to so-and-so just the other day. And you say, well, did you actually speak to them? Oh, well, I text them. So it's becoming very impersonal and very inwardly. I think there's a lot of pain and fear and insecurity and a lot of weirdness inside human beings. And I don't think our weirdness has come out. Like, I think we're a lot weirder than we admit. I think we're making out we're not. And I think the truth of it, so we have police forces and armies and governments that ultimately use brutality to make us behave ourselves. Humans aren't behaving because they're good. They're behaving because they're scared. And if we don't behave ourselves, we're in big trouble. So to me, the picture's pretty clear. I'm not quite sure why there's a debate about where we're at as a species. But the point is, I guess, what are we going to do about it? And you as a young man on this planet that has an invested interest like everyone else does, to see this as a sustainable world for us and all the animals and everything on it, how are we going to change these observations and these things that are happening in the world?
I think it's clear from what you're saying that we need to set aside one day a year to have a purge, where we're just allowed to do what we want for a year, for a day, and then. No, I know what you're saying, and there's so many different elements to it. Definitely, the government sees the need to control us more and more and more, and I think when you take the big, the small pockets in the big, that's a way to rescue yourself from that. Is just live small. If you don't go, you don't submit yourself to those things, then you free yourself. But I think when it comes to the younger generation, I only think this because I worked amongst the younger generation when I worked at Triple J for quite some time. I guess I would compare it to, say, 100 years ago. Talking to someone 100 years ago or 200 years ago was very different from the talking you're talking about now. There were airs, there was graces, there was deferring to other people and stuff, which you wouldn't have been able to say back then. And then, so I'm imagining that people, when you were a child, people your age now would suggest that you talking to people wasn't actually talking. It was, it was disgraceful. It was just the rabble, it was the plebeian rabble or whatever. So I think it's, whether texting or not is a valid form of conversation and communication. It's just, humans adapt. So maybe that is a way of communicating. I actually think that texting for me, and I do it a lot, I'm one of those people that prefers texting to getting a phone call, although I love meeting people in person. I think it's wonderful, just like we are now, just sitting in opposite sides of the room. Yeah. But I like texting for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's excellent because you can just, and like you were saying, a lot of your craziness is bottled up, your weirdness is bottled up, because you get to send the best version of yourself out in text form.
That's
Same
right.
with taking selfies and stuff. But also, I love that things that I say to my friends and they say to me, there's a permanent record, because my memory is freaking horrible. I spent 20 years playing loud punk rock and drinking too much, so I can never remember anything. And so to be able to look back on my phone and go, oh man, all right, I know that I've got to chat to David today, and some other guy was going to set up a camera. I know, I've got it all right here, and I can find back through the texting. So I've talked about this with some people about, when we were younger, we got told we only use like 1/10 of our brain or whatever, and we will eventually be able to harness more and more of it. It's a bit depressing, but I do think that this thing here may actually be another part of our brain that we're now developing, and it's horrible to think that some prick in that part of LA, what's that silly? It's whenever you set your world clock, it's the one that's always there. Yeah. That part of LA is where it owns part of your brain, but or if you have an Android, another part of the world. But I think it is a way that that younger people communicate on a valid level, and it may end up being, just as emotionally worthwhile or whatever. So I think, when the world isn't going to end because people are just writing instead of talking. I'm quite fond of the correct spelling and grammar in the world, and that's disappearing as well, and that makes me a bit sad. But I think that there are lots of different problems with the world. That's not the worst thing, I would say.
No, but it feeds it. It's. I'm not saying. Look, I agree with you. I mean, there's if things are used intelligently and with awareness, I guess nothing is wrong. No technology is wrong as such. It depends what people are doing with it. If they're using it to hide from real communication because they can't handle it, like you. The difference with you is you can walk into a room, meet some new people, meet me, have cameras on you, have mics all around you, and sit down and have a chat about life and humanity. You grab the average teenager off the street who lives in social media and texting, and I bet they'd fall apart at the idea of just having to communicate and share. And
I did
talk.
grab the average teenager off the street once, and I got arrested. Now we have to change the cameras, which is why I made that really bad joke. Yeah, what do you think? Like, I know that when it comes to, say, talking about animal rights, you can get up and talk at some vegetarian festival, the Adelaide Vegan Festival, for example. But I talk to a lot of people about it, and I have for years on the internet. Like, I used to have an email address called like Vegan Questions or Vegan Frenzal or something at hotmail.com. And I used to reply to people asking questions. It wasn't many, like 1 or 2 a week. And then when I was on MySpace, Frenzal Rhomb's MySpace, we used to talk, and my own private MySpace, and then on ICQ and all those like messenger apps, MSN Messenger. And it seems that you can communicate with so many people so easily about so many things. But I do get the feeling that, as you say, you only see the best version of yourself and you only see the best version of everyone. And so it's very hard to get a good idea of what people are actually like and how they're actually feeling when they're, when you're just trading your best tofu quiche recipes.
Yep. So, sorry, was there a question?
So what do you, I mean, you've sort of, I guess, studied the, what goes on inside people's minds. And is there an isolating aspect to the fact that we can be anywhere on the internet these days and talk to anyone?
What do you mean by isolating aspect?
Well, because we can communicate with people anywhere, but those people are still probably alone in their room.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about earlier with technology and its effects. Look, there is an isolating aspect to it, of course, because there's nothing quite replaces the, put it this way, I do a lot of counselling on Skype. And I'm just as successful talking to someone in England as I am talking to them in the lounge room. So it's not a barrier in that sense. But if all you did, like if, let's say my whole life was only talking to human beings on Skype and I never saw a real person, I think there would be a psychological detriment that I would incur as a process of that. I think we need that real tangible thing. So it's more than just communication. There's touch and love and caring and sharing that can be shown in so many ways. And I think if my life became too isolated, then I think I would feel the effects of it. But ultimately, we're all living inside our own minds. So as long as I'm alive within myself and talking to you, then this can still be an enriching experience for me. You know what I mean? Even though I'm not sitting in the same room. So potentially, I don't think technology needs to take away from the fabric of the depth of who we are. But I think at the moment it is. And I think that's only because, and the people that are growing into the technological world, they're not taught anything about real life. Like, you don't go to school and learn about communication or emotions and how to feel and how to share and how to connect. I think if that was the foundation of learning, then we would use technology really intelligently, and I think we could create an incredible world with a real combination of depth and real connection mixed in with technology interwoven in amongst our lives. And I think it could be quite amazing, but I don't think the end result is quite like that now.
Yeah, because I think people at school, I guess, told to sell, to project, to develop the perfect version of themselves. That's how you get ahead. I'm guessing this is some horrible business school that I'm imagining here, but I guess you say that people, you know what's inside your head. You've got this whole world inside your head. I'm really lucky, and I'm not sure about you, but I'm really lucky in that I've not really had to deal with any mental illness in myself at all. And it's only in working at Triple J and prior to that, maybe it also helps in the last 10 years, mental illness has really come to the fore in lots of ways. Like, I think I started to understand how much mental illness there is out there, and it kind of comes through social media, not only at Triple J where we would talk about it, we'd actually talk about mental health, and obviously you have to be taught, because you talk to callers and you have to listen out for signs. Like, if someone calls up and they sound really unhinged, you can't just go, "Well, that was a crazy caller, let's play some Bliss and Esso." But also through learning about people, like meeting people on social media and eventually in person as well, but you can be really exposed to, like, I think there are people, as I'm saying, who expose their inside their brains on the internet. They expose themselves and they're not afraid to show that they're not okay. That's one of the things that people talk about in various threads on Twitter or whatever. The people are very open about the fact that they have anxiety, they suffer from depression. There's a few people that I follow on Twitter that I know every week or so will just go off Twitter for a couple of days and just say, I can't be here, and then they'll come back. And a few people get worried, of course, and there has been instances of people who actually taken their own lives not on social media, but have left social media, then you find out they've taken their own lives. But I've been lucky in my life to not have to deal with it myself, but seeing it on the internet, and then it seems very shallow, but it helped me understand that it happens. When in the past you may think, okay, watch out for that person. That person's a bit nuts or whatever. But because of this, I realized that it's everywhere, and it's something to be understood, and not it's not just the one person in a group. It's more likely the group, and I'm the odd one out. I guess that's the sort of thing I'm saying.
Look, I think in the main, I mean, there's varying degrees. It depends on what you call one of the things. Like with what I do, I don't see anyone as having a problem or a condition as such. And a lot of the work I do is helping people get out of the mess that the psychology profession has created. Right. Because the first thing they do is label them as having something, and then what does the person do? They go home and Google that condition, and then they become obsessed about it, and then they actually start getting lost in the idea of what that is. Because ultimately, to get anxiety or depression, which is a big thing happening in society, requires getting lost in an idea. You've got to be trapped somewhere to get depressed, whatever that is. Yeah, whatever that is. It's something that will encase you, and it could be something as extreme as someone you love dying or a partner leaving you, through to an animal rights person might have anxiety and depression thinking about the animal cruelty going on the planet, or it could be over some obsession about some person, or they don't like their nose. Either way, they get lost in that idea, and if that idea seems unsolvable enough, that creates anxiety. So anxiety is simply a manifestation of a human being not being able to find solutions to their identified problems. And the reason anxiety is developing is because our whole schooling system is a very problem-solving system. And problem-solving is very narrow, right? You pick a point and an objective, and you're always working your way towards that point and objective. So you're constantly specializing and narrowing your life. And you look at most people's careers, they just get narrower and narrower and narrower. But we see that as great. We see that as, oh, wow, I'm really specialist at what I do now. But all that does to the human brain is put them in a small, tight space, and then they end up. That's why most people end up having midlife breakdowns, or why so many successful musicians or actors or people that get to the pinnacle of what they were working towards end up screwed up, because when they get there, they're trapped in a small space. They have so much fame, success, and money, but they're in a tiny little space, and hence we see people like Robin Williams killing themselves effectively by not realizing what he'd done to his own life by chasing an objective, right? So we're all about chasing shit and narrowing it in.
Yeah, like down to that sort of, caught in the end of the two walls. There's something I was talking about. This is kind of connected. There's a march against slaughterhouses coming up in Sydney, and I got asked to speak at it just because a friend of mine's putting it on. And obviously, being an passionate animal rights activist and supporter, it's something that I should be for. But I am going to speak at it. But I'm gonna the thing that March to End All Slaughterhouses that seems sort of it irks me a little bit is that I know people who work in slaughterhouses, and a lot of them, if, for example, the march worked and suddenly all slaughterhouses, bam, were gone, there'll be a lot of people that only have the one trajectory in life, that have been through where they've been born, through how they were brought up, through their family, through where they live. That is the industry they've been born into, essentially. And they are going to be, that's the industry that they know that they do well in. And I'm sure it's not a very glamorous industry, and I'm sure they don't smell very nice when they come home from work, but that is it's all they know how to do. And they are animals as much as all animals are animals, these human beings, as we all are. And I have trouble sort of imagining that, we're going to save some animals by destroying a whole industry without first thinking, what about the human beings that work in this industry? And it's I know you were talking about different bubbles of humans, and there are people who live outside our bubbles who are really nice people. And I remember one of the things when I used to speak at at vegetarian festivals, one of the subjects that I spoke about was, I actually labeled it really nice meat eaters versus asshole vegetarians, understanding the former to avoid becoming the latter. And I just know that the world is so big and full of awesome people from all different sorts of worlds, and people that are really nice but just may not know as much as us about things. And so I'm very careful not to paint all people in a certain light. And so I guess, when I talk about, you talk at the start about, what sort of a vegan am I or whatever, and I talk about, I think that animal rights is up here, and underneath animal rights is the rights of all different animals, including humans. So human rights comes under animal rights, and I think it's important to not forget that human rights are also part of animal rights. And so, imagine what someone in that world is thinking. They're looking at this march to end all slaughterhouses, for example, and going, but working in a slaughterhouse is all I know how to do. I've just bought this house with my wife or my husband. We've had kids. I've got a mortgage, and this is the only skill I have. And you, a bunch of pricks from the city, are now wearing your silly pants and marching to end my job. That's kind of shit, dude. But
can you apply that openness to everybody then? Because otherwise, I see what you're saying. It's a non-judgmental space. Because we don't want to use the justification that call it a slaughterhouse if you like. They're paid to murder. Right? And humans can take pleasure from the byproducts of their murder. So they go to work and murder things every single day. If we're if we're to step out of speciesism, then that's what it is in the truth. Sure, we don't call it murder, we call it slaughter, because we've defined that these animals' lives have less worth than ours. So are they any different then, other than a legal point of view, than a pedophile that runs a pedophile ring and makes a fortune and has his business and buys his home and runs a successful life and has friends that come over for dinner, and we're going to take his lifestyle away by taking away his right to be a pedophile? Because otherwise we've got to start looking at it in that extreme, and that means we've got to say, oh, that poor pedophile, maybe his dad was a pedophile, maybe he grew up in a pedophile world, so we should not judge him any more or less than anyone else also. But the point I'm making is, I think we've got to look at this as everything that is wrong is clearly wrong. If it's encompassing abuse and taking advantage of innocent lives, which is what we do to animals and what pedophiles do to children. So to me, the mindset is exactly the same. One is legal and one isn't at the moment. But the end result is take out the law, because the law is no guide of anything. It's an antiquated, silly system, as I said, founded on brutality and control. So let's not put too much weight on what's legal and what's not, and let's look at what's right and what's not. So shouldn't we look at it like, yes, I agree with you, right? We don't have to condemn those people because they probably don't know any different, and they just see it as a job like the guy that goes and, works at Bunnings. So, but the end result is it still has to stop, right? And if we got real, then it would just, all factory farming would have to end. All slaughterhouses would have to end. All farmers that breed animals have lost their income. Now, there's a point to where you've got to say, well, you've been making money out of something sick and cruel for a long time. So to what degree do we afford caring to those that are actually creating and causing all the damage and pain? Because if you or I to sit inside what these animals go through and feel the horror and terror that they experience, I think we might change our view very quickly as to how lenient we want to be with giving people their lifestyles.
Yeah, I was talking about that the other day when someone asked what if you could have one, this is like a podcast, the Knowing Animals podcast that I did, and if you could have one, you could just be granted one wish, I guess she said, about human and animal relations, what would it be? And I was like, well, that movie Powder, this guy could actually feel the actual pain animals felt and then transmit that to humans. And there was this deer harrowing scene, and absolutely that would be you would immediately feel differently. I guess what I think about is, when you think of the system and the way that it forces people into certain roles, and there are people in the world, if you watch, or read, I should probably say, not Fast Food Nation, there was another one from back in them days, basically showing you how a certain portion of the workforce in America, and they're mostly migrant workforce, have been forced into this role, and they don't have any other skills, and that's their lot in life. And they didn't choose that in so much as a human being has choice. Obviously they can choose other things, but in America, what do? If you live in those towns, you work at Walmart and sell stuff that's made by kids in a sweatshop, or you work in an abattoir. And absolutely, it's wrong and it's horrible, and it is murder. It is legalized murder, and every single one of those lives is taken unnecessarily, causing untold pain and also damage to the world, blah, blah, blah. But that person, I think we need to also just have a space to also think about that person in that, they're also people that could be as compassionate as us if they were sort of given a chance.
Absolutely. Look, and there have been people that have worked in slaughterhouses that have become vegan. There are people who have had farms where they breed pigs for a living, and see them from cute little babies coming out and taking them from their mothers and murdering them. It's hard to believe a human could separate themselves from seeing life and creating life, and then also being the destroyer of it at the same time. It's extraordinary what we're capable of. And this is what I think we need to look more honestly at. And I also look at the guy in the slaughterhouse, and I look at him as someone that's being abused. He's being taken advantage of by businessmen, by evil, greedy people that have really just abusing life and employ people. Because I guarantee you, if you could kill animals for a living, you're not in a healthy mindset. That's not good for those people. I don't care whether they even have found a way to justify it and tell themselves it is. How could that be healthy? Seeing blood, death, and murder, and animals in shock and horror and fear around you all day, every day. So obviously it's got to stop for many reasons. And no, we don't need to. I think part of the progression of our species is to stop judging each other, but we've still got to get real with each other. And this is why I'm suggesting it's time we start having, let's get the ball rolling by at least having conversations on a higher level, higher plane of discussion, and more honest, and start ripping through all of our basic levels of discussion that we currently have and start talking on a broader level, because I don't think we think big enough to deal with the enormity of what's in front of us. I think what we've created in our naivety and our small problem-solving thinking has created all the mess we're dealing with today. So we got billions of human beings all in a tiny, small thinking space, but there's so many of us, we can get together and create such a big effect, and it makes us look like, for a while, like we're having a party. Ooh, look at us humans on planet Earth.
If you click the right hashtag, you will find. If you click the right hashtag, you'll see that the world's fine.
Yes, and and we've got away with it for quite a long time. And I think the truth is now, the evidence is here. I've been talking this way for a long time. I didn't need to see it get this bad to see that this was happening, and I predicted it being as I see it today. Like psychologically, I thought I did the maths on how the human brain works, and it's not like it. Problem solving is a collective pathway as well, and it's an ever-shrinking one. So we're on an ever-shrinking psychological pathway. So I think that what's important here is we've got to rip ourselves off that treadmill, and we've got to relook at everything. And we've got to relook at slaughterhouses, and we've got to relook at how we're going to deal with the situation and how we're going to help these people. Will be something that will come to life as that unfolds. But I think we've got to start with it first acknowledging what we're partaking in, and that we have in our blind obsession for feeling good, which is ultimately what drives every human being. They run away from bad feelings and run towards good, and that's the unconscious state. In a conscious state, we deal with whatever. You know what I mean? Like facing animal abuse is not pleasant. Like I don't face it because I like it. Oh yeah, I want to go watch videos on animals being killed so I can become a vegan and tell other people what to do. Yay, that's a lot of fun. No, it's one of the most gross things. I wish it didn't exist, and I hate the fact that I've had to face it. But the truth is, I'm not a vegan. I'm just a guy that faced the truth, and in facing the truth, I live like what people call being a vegan. And yep.
Do you actually watch those videos? Like, I mean, since I've been vegan, the Cowspiracies come out. I think Earthlings came out as well.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched them because I'm already a vegan. I'll tell everyone else to watch them.
Yes.
But I narrated Lucent, the piggery video, the expose into the piggeries. That was horrible. I had to watch stuff that, like, I know how bad it is. I watched the videos when I went vegan, back on the bad dial-up internet, or using the CD-ROM that I was given. But the narrating that, and having to get the right tone, I had to watch the movie as I narrated over it, and I think it probably doesn't hurt to be exposed to that stuff, to remember what it is that we are fighting for, that we're standing against.
Yes, this is real. This is not just an idea. This is the problem. It's in such large numbers. We look at it as a statistic, as a conceptual issue. It's not a conceptual issue. It's real. These are real living creatures, just like you and I, that function in different ways, but that's irrelevant. We don't treat something worse because it functions differently. That's absurd and obscene. And these creatures are suffering at a level that we can, like, God, humans complain because they have a bad day, or they didn't like their haircut. They can feel miserable and unhappy, or because someone said, I don't like you. Oh, my feelings are hurt. And they're like little babies almost about, like, that. You go out today and try and hurt someone's feelings and do an experiment and go up to 100 people. You could do it all like that quick. Next. And you ask that same 100 to care about the lives of these animals and tell them, no, they are in agony and suffering. Oh, yeah, but I love my meat. So you can see the conceptual world as a dangerous world. We can live in bubbles and ignore huge things. So I'm saying, let's get out of our friggin' bubbles and start getting real with each other, because I think the bullshit has to stop. And I think we all bullshit each other is the truth of it. And we talk in a softy little nice way to each other. And I think it has to get more real. And if people don't like hearing it, tough shit. Yeah,
but you can see how telling people that is, it'll make them see, it'll make them scared that it's too big. I can stop something on a personal level. I can do this, but this bit's too big. This isn't for me to do. This is this. It's the scope of that's too large to imagine. I can not shop at sweatshops. I can not buy meat or whatever. Or whatever people do. But the second you say to them, no, we need to all do this massive thing, you can see that that's a harder way to get people into it than just saying, download the PETA PDF.
Look, I agree with you. The thing that I've learnt, Lindsay, is that to not strategize this journey, because the way I'm looking at it is to not use the same techniques that we use to create the problem, right? We've strategized ourselves into this mess effectively. And no matter how we get the best experts in the world to analyze this and the environment and all these issues, and it's not like politicians are doing nothing, even though it looks like it. Of course, they're trying their little butts off to try and be successful and be the best leader and make things work. And all the top scientists and whatever get together and they're recruited. But with all their best efforts, everything they do, we make it worse because we're strategizing and we're functioning from a small, sick little place. And we're not even looking at how sick we are, or about our sexuality and our fears and our insecurities. Like, no one even talks about that shit. So here we are, all pathetically insecure with sick little desires that we never tell anyone, running around trying to deal with a global crisis. So of course we can't handle that. But I think what I'm saying is, rather than strategizing it, because the whole vegan community is just got so many strategies going on, it's crazy. Why don't we just say it the way it is? And people get used to it, right? In the beginning, they might go, oh, that's so big. But maybe the first time, maybe the second time. Eventually, if enough people start talking at the right level, it won't seem so absurd and big, and it will start making sense. And then they'll start asking questions, and then they'll become more interested. And then they'll see that what they can individually do is not that huge what they have to do. To start with, everyone could just stop doing one thing. Just stop eating meat, right? That will change the planet dramatically, instantaneously. It'll help your soul, help your mind, help the planet, help the animals, and instantly we become more like caretakers than abusers, just from one simple act that every human being can do. That is not complicated, and that's not a big ask. It only becomes a big ask because they created an identity, and eating meat is part of their identity, right? Because that's connected with socializing, friends, lifestyle, and all that kind of stuff. So it's not really the meat that's the issue. It's their illness and their addictions. And the only reason they can't let go of their addictions is because they're so bloody unhappy in the truth of it. Otherwise, if you were a happy, content, confident person and you found out there's cruelty in the meat industry, you'd just stop, right? You go, oh shit, I didn't know. Or if someone pointed out something in my lifestyle and I didn't know about it, it's not like nobody's perfect. I'm sure there's tons of shit we could all keep learning, but you're not going to defend it. You're not going to make out it's not real. So I keep pushing forward saying, I don't think we're talking big enough and hard enough about the truth. Or I think we're going to miss the boat. I really do, because I think we're too slow. This slow, gentle way doesn't work, and the human mind will avoid anything if it can. So while you're being nice to people, they take advantage of it. And they take advantage of, whether it be collectively or individually. It's like with my work. Like I'm not your traditional counsellor. I don't even like that name. I just help people with their lives, but I can tell you it's hard friggin' core. The people that want to get real, we got shit to work on, and we got to bust through your crap and your fears and your insecurities before you'll ever see the world properly, right? Before they'll ever feel it properly. So for me, I think this is a big thing that's required, and I think that, part of these conversations, why we're creating this unedited space to talk in, because I just don't think it's happening, and I don't see that level of conversation rising up, other than in little small pockets or at people's dinner parties, or you know what I mean. This needs to be mainstream conversation where human beings face the truth of what we really are.
They're just calling time. Yeah, it's and it is something that you say that comes up at dinner parties, and when you're not tiptoeing around people, including, in fact, I would even say especially in certain feel-good vegan communities and vegetarian communities where it's a couple of things. Sometimes you're much more concerned about the latest vegetarian or vegan restaurant, and I still think that's fine, because normalization of veganism I think is a good thing, and the fact that 10 years ago the word vegan wasn't readily understood, now it is, means that things like you're talking about, being able to step up the passion, step up the arguments, is going to work out a lot easier, because normal people have got the vocabulary that they didn't 10 years ago. But I think in terms of vegan communities, sometimes people can be not very good at expressing themselves in the right ways, or not very good at getting outside the vegan communities. I mean, vegan festivals are wonderful in that they showcase how far we've come, but also sometimes they can be a little bit exclusive and exclude people outside the vegan world. I know that I was hosting one in Sydney a few years ago, me and my friend Marique. Marique and I were hosting it. She's also vegan. And afterwards, they introduced the platinum sponsor on the stage to talk. They had all the different, silver, gold, whatever sponsors. Platinum sponsor is the one that donates the most money to the festival, gets to speak last. It was a natural cosmetics company, no animal testing, all this stuff, great. Talked about that stuff for a bit, and then started talking about how the government was trying to control us with chemtrails out the back of aeroplanes and all these other things. And I'm just yelling at the screen from the comfort of this nicely fenced off vegan wine area that we were drinking wine in, going at the stage, this is not what people are coming to the vegan festival to hear. People who are walking past with their families going, oh, this looks nice, oh, delicious burger, oh, it's vegan, tell me more about veganism. What the hell? Chemtrails? Get stuffed. I think that sometimes people lump veganism in with other, fringe-dwelling ideas, and as a result, the message gets a little diluted or lost.
Yeah, well, I guess the message, when I talk about broadening out the message, it's more to put forward that veganism is a byproduct of going on an aware, conscious journey, as opposed to a fear-based journey, which you can see that. The more insecure and fearful a person is, the more likely they are to edit life, the more likely they are to ignore information, because they can't handle it, right? It makes sense, and so to me it's like, okay, so we know that's where everyone's at, including vegans, right? It's not like vegans are more confident than anyone else. They're rich with insecurities and fears, and hence they put forward their message, with distortion. Either they're too soft and accommodating, and I can't, everyone to their own, and you've got to do what you've got to do. They're not talking about it like it's murder and death. They're talking about it like it's a lifestyle, even though they know it's not. And then you get other vegans that want to yell and scream and say, they see a hunter, and then they'll write things like, I want to string him up by his balls and slice his throat open. All of a sudden, they become the hunter. And yet they're telling how wrong hunting is. So you can see it all goes crazy. I guess what I would like to present is veganism is just a natural byproduct. It's not an end result. It's not like some pinnacle of a place we need to be at. And it's not some weird little lifestyle where vegans get together and we hang out and have fun, even though that is what happens. I'd like to open people's minds. So, because at the moment there's too much divisiveness, and veganism creates a divisiveness in society. There's nothing that separates people more than bringing up animal rights issues. I can tell you, like, I'm sure you've experienced it. You know, you can have a friend that's been in your life for 10 years and suddenly you make a stand on veganism and they're not your friend anymore. And that's a common story. So to me, we've got to take that divisiveness out. And we've got to realize, vegan or not, that we're all fucked up to some degree. And we have to admit that, because if the world's fucked up, that means we're fucked up. Right? If we were healthy, the world would look healthy. So it's not hard to pick where the truth lives. So vegan or not, we've just got to start creating a platform of conversation to get more honest about where we're at. Still doesn't mean the meat eater can go on eating meat and justify it in the process of that journey. You know, so we've got to, like, see the truth, but at the same time, that's not the topic to be pushed. Like, veganism just exposes animal cruelty, which exposes psychology and exposes the fact that we're trapped in a weird, small, edited space. That's what it exposes, right? The fact that Australia's favourite food is a baby lamb, for goodness sake, lambs, and that the Koreans and the Chinese love skinning dogs alive in the market, alive. Man's best friend. This happens. Right? And yet we trade with them and, oh, yeah, we don't care. Kill dogs, do you? Oh, that's fine. Like, it's nuts. And so how can we continue as a species justifying nutty shit like that? Eating baby lambs and skinning dogs alive. Like, you know, and they're one and the same thing. Because over there, they don't see that as any weirder than what we do over here.
And it also means it's the same argument that not that there's very many people in Japan who actually eat whale, but that the whalers would say to us when meat eaters try and protest against Japanese whaling, it's like, well, you're doing the same thing to a different large animal. It happens to be a land-dwelling one.
We shoot kangaroos from helicopters.
Oh, God. And horses now. We're about to fix the Kosciuszko National Park by culling 37,000. Anyway, they're taking it down from 40,000 to 300, I think, is the idea, over 20 years in the Kosciuszko National Park, because they're causing a problem to the Kosciuszko National Park. No, they're not. We're causing the problem in the national park because we aren't properly. We let these horses in. We're not properly managing them. And what do? You just start shooting them. You just start shooting them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, what is it, cognitive dissonance, I think some term for it, that we can justify things and not justify others. And that happens in the vegan world as well. You permit things so you can, because I definitely like the idea of you can get, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. And so you sort of turn a blind eye to something so you can get in there and get into their head and, lead by example and show people that the world, that, you can enjoy life as a vegan person and you can get in there. Like, I don't think that, obviously you're not suggesting that we have to make examples of every meat eater and yell at them and until they sort of succumb to our plans. But I think it's, I like the idea of, I don't think it, I don't even know how I even got to this part of the thing, but you can be friends with people and try and lead by example. And I don't think that is a bad example of cognitive dissonance. I know what happens is horrible and wrong, but I can still be friends with people who partake in that, I guess.
Well, I guess it depends, there is a point, though, where I still feel that you still got to sit in the truth, right? Because if I had a friend, and people don't like me using this example of pedophiles versus animal cruelty, but there's no difference in reality from a psychological point of view in terms of justifying still a psychopathic act. Doesn't matter how you cut it. So if you're hanging out with someone that's behaving in a slightly psychopathic way or more on that verge of it, and a psychopath is someone that struggles to feel for others, right? So if you can't feel for animals, then that is a psychopathic behavior of a kind. You've still got to be real that that's what you're hanging out with. And therefore, if you truly care about someone, then either you have to admit you're all fucked up together, but if you're the not fucked up one, then you have a responsibility to help them and help them see, because that's an unhealthy space they're trapped in, right? It's not just a lifestyle. It's not about you being accepting. Oh, Lindsay's such a lovely guy. He loves animals, but he's not going to condemn other human beings because they eat meat. They're still my friends. That doesn't change the reality I guess what I'm trying to help people see is there's a psychology to this, and that to justify eating meat means you're trapped in a very dangerous small space, right? Because it's the easiest thing in the world to see. If you can't see the animal issue, then you have got delusions going on in your reality beyond your comprehension.
But they do have, generations, like for instance, they were born and generations before of humans doing that to feed that delusion that they still have. Yeah. I think a worse, and I don't think there's a hierarchy of dickheads, but that there are a sort of people, there may be a hierarchy of dickheads, you could probably find it online, but I would say above, in my mind, are the people who have learnt about animal rights, have become vegetarian or gone vegan, gone however far down that road, and then gone back. And I hear them. There was someone on 702 on local radio a couple of days ago. There was a woman from Voiceless talking, and there was a woman from a psychologist, in fact she was, I think, who had been vegan and gone back to eating meat for various essentially selfish reasons, including the fact that she had she was, I think, pregnant and got really sick, and in her own words, my body was telling me that it needed meat, which I think I tweeted something about. There's a song by Propaganda called The Flensing of Sandor Katz, and Sandor Katz is a dude in America who was vegetarian and went back to advocating ethical killing, which is what this woman was doing as well. And the song is actually about knocking on his door and murdering him in an ethical fashion and honoring the dead, honoring his death as they eat him. It's a fictitious, speculative fiction. But yeah, so I think that these people, the people that know better and yet still, for whatever essentially selfish reason, go back to living that past life, are worse than the people who are ignorant to it, or that you think you may be able to bring around at some point with kindness and compassion.
So what would you do? Let's just say that there could be a global message of truth, right? A global, let's say, education day, and we all agreed on the planet that everyone needs at least the truth. Not to say what we should do with that truth. Yeah. But we all watch the same truth about life, human behavior, the way we treat animals, the way we treat each other. So there's this movie, call it, for 2 hours that explains the whole thing, right? So we lay it all out. It's all very clear. There's no saying what anyone should do. And let's just say we all watched it. And then when the shit settles, we'll find out maybe that half the human species are just assholes and that the other half were just waiting to be woken up, right? We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they're 90% assholes. I don't know. Maybe genetically humans can't help it. They're from maybe our caveman days are just too hard to shake off, and we've still got a lot of primitive DNA in our system, and there's a new DNA emerging of more conscious beings naturally. But whatever the case may be, we've got to find out where we're at, don't we? We've got to find the truth, and you don't find the truth by soft selling it. So I'm going to throw a question at you now. Do you think that you soft sell the truth by convenience, like when it comes to your own needs? Because that's ultimately what's causing the trouble on this planet. When it comes to our own needs, we're a bit softer on harsh truth than we are when it's not affecting our needs.
I think when it comes to my relationships, I do in a way, but it's not, I don't think it's like, what I am very open about the reasons that I'm the way I am, and I'll say that to anyone, and I don't shy away from that, and I will go down, like I'm happy to go down with that, but I don't, like I'll go down as far down as I can with that in, to whoever who asks or doesn't ask, depending on whether they're, what state of drunkenness I'm in or whatever, but I don't then turn it, I don't sort of, I talk about the horror and the issues that I believe in. That's what I hate. That's where the anger is. The anger is not directed at the person I talk to. So I will still talk to that person with affection or love or whoever, or friendliness, depending on who it is. But so I will I'm soft to that person, but I'm not soft on the facts that I'm talking about. Okay. So that's an interesting way to get out of your question.
Yes, well, as long as you being soft is not softening the facts, you know what I mean?
Oh, no, and no one, I would never say something like, I mean, it's softening the facts. That would be saying something like, oh yeah, but they've made, you know, they're trying to make life for those animals okay now. Oh, but they're much more humane than they used to be. That kind of bullshit, which is never true in any industry that involves, that's. So no, I definitely am not the person that would be guilty of just saying anything like that. What I do know is that my relationships with humans is, there is a permissiveness, but it is not through me just sort of being, knowing, for example, my wife and I, both vegan, her dad is one of those guys that loves to make jokes about meat around us. And obviously we still love him. He's a great Aussie larrikin, but we also are very happy to talk to him about exactly what's wrong with what he's eating. And if he's going to bring it, we're going to bring it as well. And we're not going to shy away from that. And it's not like you just sort of, I don't change the way I present facts based on a certain human being. Or I don't change the facts anyway.
So in your life then, do you feel anything holds you back? Like as one individual, do you feel like there's more you could do, more you could say, more you could be in this world?
Yeah. Oh, laziness. Laziness holds me back. Laziness, and also the fact that I have so many different ways of doing things, so many different angles. I do the radio thing, I make music, I do, there's how do you tell the story? Apart from doing things like this and banging on about stuff on Twitter and Facebook as much as I can, I do in times I've thought, okay, should I put, I've just tweeted a thing about a band that I like or whatever, or I've done some, some nicey-feely Twitter thing. But then I do think, okay, should this next one be me tweeting about how, what was the last one? There was some horrendous backstep that one government in Australia took. Should I do that? Because that's probably going to alienate a few people that are watching me on Twitter. No, stuff it. If they've come for the nice, good, feely music thing, they're going to get the animal rights tweet as well.
Yeah.
So I think, but I'm in a privileged position that I have a profile that is also not too sugar-coated. I'm not some, and also I'm not a woman. I know women get, pilloried much more on social media than guys do. As a white dude, middle class, I get a lot of free passes in this world. And so it would be silly for me to not make use of those, because I can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
I think.
So you feel even in as far as your future's concerned, do you visualize yourself stepping bigger and stronger into, what you've learned and grown to see? Do you feel that there's a role for you to play in this journey and that you're going to work on whatever it is that holds you back? Do you look at it like that as well? Do you work on yourself as an individual?
Yeah, I think it's working out whether the future lies in yelling louder or yelling smarter, I guess. Is that work harder, work smarter? Is that the thing that people talk about? And work out where to best use your energy, whether it's on a radio show yelling about stuff, in a band yelling about stuff, in some kind of, I don't even know what they call them, brains trust or something like that, to actually help in some way or strategize, which I'm sure you'd be stoked at, another group to strategize ways to fix the world. But yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one of the things about stepping away from Triple J, was that I could actually focus on using my brain for other things. Most of it is writing dumb songs, but for the band that I'm in, but there's definitely a lot more room to do stuff now. And I'm 38 years old, so I've got time to, I've had time to learn. And now I'm on the second part of it. I get to spew it all forth in all the various ways, and that's something that I would like to do.
Working at Triple J, was there a sense of being gagged at all, or were you free to say whatever you felt like?
Not gagged, but you learn how to do it, how to present it. You learn, and this, I guess, there's not really sugarcoating. If I ever used the word vegan on air, and I would a lot, you would guarantee at least 10 text messages, shut the hell up, who cares, stop shoving it down my throat. Yeah. And yet, someone talking about a barbecue is fine. Someone talking about, Christmas lunch is fine, which to me is egregious. It's ridiculous. I would talk about the tofurkey that I made for Christmas, and people would go, who cares? But yet, every Christmas there's how to best baste your turkey shows on the ABC or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I learned there's a few different ways. I would have guests on. I had Chrissy Hind on from the Pretenders, and she's unrelenting, and she was hated, and I thought it was great. Because we got to talk about the Pretenders, but we also talked about animal rights issues. Abby Cornish, the actor, who is also an animal, she came on specifically to talk about animal rights, and was like, you have to. I guess what I had to work out was how to. Like with everything, if I'm getting a musician on from a band that not many people have heard of, you have to open up that discussion. If I'm getting someone on from a book or a movie that people haven't read, or someone who's invented a thing, or from a cause that's kind of weird, you need to open it up. You need to open it up to the listeners. So, you would talk about something that would then lead to it to bring people in. Like if you're getting someone on who's talking about some weird cause, like, so I would say it's talking about, poverty and people living on less than $2 a day. You'd have to open it up by making people, have you asked the question, have they ever lived this life? Imagine what it would be like to wake up and only have $2 in your hand to spend that day. What would you spend it on? Blah, blah, blah. You open it up, you get the person in, people have already been thinking about it, so it's a natural progression. And so I would learn to do things that way. I've only used that example because I can't think of how we opened up the discussion with Abby Cornish, but it was like something. It wasn't as hacky as, do you ever think about what you're eating and where it comes from? It was something like that, but it wasn't as hacky as that. But I definitely wasn't gagged for any animal rights stuff at Triple J. I may have gagged myself, but only thinking in terms of making the radio show as broad as I could to trick the people into it before hitting them with it.
Yeah, because I haven't had as much experience in radio as you. I did more like late night talkback for a period of time in my life, and felt that it might be an avenue for me to communicate and share how I felt about the world. And I wasn't even vegan when I started, but the essence of where I was talking from was the same, which is why I'm not so rigid about it, because I can see it's where you're growing from that matters. And if it's on a selfish journey, well, it will create disastrous outcomes of various kinds, whatever that is. And if it's a growing, honest journey, you'll slowly shed out the bullshit out of your life. And anyway, I had an opportunity to work on radio, and initially two things that happened. Like you, I'd be talking about big topics, and not even just pushing animal rights, but just openness and honesty and whatever that came to be, whatever the political topics were of the day. And most of the time, I got shit coming back at me and a lot of abusive callers but there's a way of opening that up, right? You be patient, and then you draw it out, but you got to be strong, but you got to keep drawing out the truth and drawing it out. And I'd have callers that would be abusing me 10 minutes later, crying and apologizing for being so rude to me, and then seeing where I was coming from. And eventually, after 2 months, all the shit disappeared. And it was just a show of growth and sharing, and people phoning up saying how they love hearing my show, because men come on and cry and talk and get real in ways that they never do. And so, it's about, yes, you can't enforce anything on anybody. That's what the governments already do. So there's no point trying to do that with any good cause. That seems kind of weird. But you've got to draw them to you, but you can't draw people to you unless you're presenting something strong and clear. And you have to be strong and clear to get their attention, because we've got to realize they're trapped in a small, distorted space in the first place, right? So it's not about, to me, coddling with where humans are at. It's about getting real with where they're at, and realizing how quickly they can see clarity and strength if you give them that. But you've got to give them that opportunity. So if you're a bit weak with people, then you're feeding weakness. If you're strong with them, you're feeding strength. And strength is not about domination and control. Strength is a place that you have to find within yourself. On that topic, how are you traveling as a human being in your journey? Do you feel you're getting stronger as you get older, or how would you describe your energetic spiritual journey, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, my bonds to people are much stronger than they used to be. Obviously it helps finding someone that you fall in love with and marry and all that kind of thing. Yeah. I definitely think that I am now more regularly forget what I'm trying to talk about. I think having done 10 years in radio and also being in the band, learning to communicate with people is something that's pretty important to me, and I never knew how to do it properly. And you learn over the years of being in radio, but also years of being in a band and talking to people on different levels, and being into animal rights and talking to people on those levels. And just, yeah, I think I feel pretty, like, I still have, like everyone does, confidence issues in certain things, like standing at the side of a room of people you don't know, that kind of thing. But I think I'm much better now at finding something to latch onto and then getting into a conversation that way, finding a way to become, to help, to join the conversation or find a way to bring people into a conversation that I want to have, which is, I think, pretty important if you want to communicate for a living, which is what I want to do. I think, like learning amount of, like, compassion for animals is something that, you're supposed to have if you're vegan, but learning, I think there's an emotional thing that I didn't have for quite some time, to actually feel an emotion around living things, as opposed to just the fact that the pain that they feel is horrible and stuff. So that's something that I've developed, and I don't know whether you're supposed to develop it earlier or not, but I only developed it in about the last 4 or 5 years, actually feeling emotions about things. So that's probably affected me a bit.
So what's it like, if you were to imagine being your wife without any bias, what's it like being married to you?
She's, well, as I'm sure most people would say, she's very tolerant about stuff. Because I do get really, angry with stuff, stupid stuff, that you can't change, like stuff isn't working properly, stuff, if something isn't loading where it's supposed to be loading, if the food isn't getting cooked at the right speed. I have a temper like that goes a bit short sometimes. So Jen's very good, and I'm also very forgetful. So I can imagine Jen is quite used to just breathing through me being a dickhead when I get angry sometimes, but and also understanding that I will need to be reminded of things quite a lot. But I think also, hopefully, she'll see that her effect on me has been quite profound. So, like, when I get all emotional with her and emotional about things like that I wouldn't have got before, hopefully she's seen in the last 5 years that progression. So hopefully she would see that.
Are you emotionally communicative?
Yeah. And I never used to be.
Like you obviously are about life, but like on personal things and how you're feeling. If you're upset one day, you'd share that and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's something that's hard to do, because I've tried to at times, and it hasn't, like as in earlier, like in my life, and I just haven't, because it hasn't worked or whatever. But yeah, like actually talking, because it's a very important topic of conversation. It's much more important than how was your day. It's like, how do you feel right now?
Yeah,
and it's and my wife's very, very emotional, like. Not only the obvious stuff like crying in TV commercials, but like actually emotional, is emotionally mature. She knows how what her emotions do to her and how they affect things. Like, and that's something that being that I'm a white male from the Sutherland Shire, was quite good at not caring about that stuff. So I think it's something that's and that kind of goes hand in hand with the way I approach people outside, trying to educate people on things now, to try and see it from their point of view, which is, you can theorize empathy and stuff, and I've been good at theorizing empathy, because as anyone is, but to actually kind of understand that there are so many different types of people in the world that you have to understand where they're coming from to then know how to communicate to them. I think.
All right, Lindsay, got a couple more questions for you, and they're sort of big questions, but I don't necessarily need big answers, like more just concise, clear, cutting to the chase to sort of sum up where you're at about a couple of things. Firstly, the question would be, just in general, do you find on an emotional level, is life a struggle for you? Like, do you have to work at it? Is it like a day-to-day thing where you've got to always keep checking in and working on yourself, or do you find it easy?
Well, the concise answer is no, but that comes from being aware of how lucky I am where I am in life and stuff.
Right.
But slightly longer answer, especially now that I'm outside of working constantly. Like, I used to work 10 hours a day at Triple J for the last 5 years I was working there. So apart from the fact that I was financially fine, I had no time to think about anything else. Now I do have days where I'm just like going, what am I even doing? Like, I'm in a band that's been going for 20 years, doesn't really do much. I don't have a job. I don't have a steady form of income. Should I just go I really should just go and do something. But then I think I don't have any skills besides talking shit and playing guitar. I used to work in a fruit shop back in Engadine before I joined Frenzal Rhomb, and I would be quite happy to go back to that, except I don't like the early mornings. So yes, I do have, on an emotional level, life can be a struggle, but I also, when I think about all the luck I've had and the privilege I've got and all that stuff, it's fine. It's absolutely fine, and I will be fine. Like I can somehow live without a regular income, and I've done it for a year and 4 months since I left Triple J, which is pretty damn lucky. And whenever I think about wanting to get back into radio, I've got a few friends who are like this. We just go, well, surely it's not our place. Another white guy on radio talking about what's important to them, bringing you the news of the day. There's a whole lot more voices that haven't had a chance, and we're not wanting to sell ABC, but they did this awesome thing this year where they just employed, like, in big places, replaced 4 guys with 4 girls, and one of them's Indigenous, then maybe 2 of them are Indigenous. But anyway, it's just like, it's nothing, and it seems tokenistic, but it's freaking great. It's rad, and it's like I feel bad when I hear someone hear radio and just go, man, I want to be doing that. And I think, yeah, but I could be doing that. It's quite easy for me to get that job. It should go to someone else. So yeah, other people have it worse than me. So whilst I do have struggles, they're not that bad.
Right. Okay. So overall, you feel you can handle the human condition.
Yeah. I'm relatively pessimistic about it on a broader scale, but that's fine.
Yeah. All right. So based on then, you've obviously worked on life and yourself to get to that point. That doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's not, even though you've had a good life, life's still hard for everyone. I get that. If you had just, I don't know, let's call it a minute, just a brief something. If you were to speak to the world and you knew the whole world was listening to you in that minute or two, what if you were seriously given that opportunity? Let's say right now, we had 8 billion people watching Lindsay here right now. What from your years of life to this point? Maybe I'll get the privilege of asking you in another 10 years, but where you're at now, what would you say if you had the chance? To really just concisely share what you think is most important for a young person or anyone, an older person, to hear and to think about.
Oh, it's going to be hard not to sound like some kind of, broad Dalai Lama kind of guy. I'd probably say, look, David Coles isn't going to like this because it's too nice and too sugar-coated. But the one thing that I find that makes me feel best in life is just that feeling you get when you've done something that's freaking nice and constructive. And whether it's something really like just, making sure that everything's ready for your wife to have an awesome time when she gets home from a 10-hour day at work, or when you help out someone who's not doing that well. I rode my bike to work the other day to fix the strings on a friend's guitar because she didn't know how to do it. I've had a lot of luck. I've had a lot of luck and privilege in my life, so I get to be nice to people quite a lot, and I know how good it feels. So you should be nice to someone on any level, whether it's on a giant systemic level or a personal level, and just imagine it, just think about how feel that is. Hold how good that feels. Hold that in your hand and think about it, and then just go, why would I do anything else? Why would I do anything that's destructive when I can have this feeling every time I do anything?
Yeah.
And it's as hippie as hell, but most hippies I know are not, they're not that good at stuff. So yeah, just do that.
Beautiful.
And can please translate that into the appropriate languages.
Yeah, absolutely. No, look, that's not too soft. It's said with strength, and I think it is a beautiful thing. And in the simplicity of it, that is what we need to do. Just be nicer and kinder to each other, and things would change a lot. So, all right, Lindsay. Well, look, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and maybe we'll be able to have a chat again one day and see where things are at and if things have changed. And
cool. Thank you, David. Cheers, man.
Thank you. All right. I appreciate all that.
No worries. It was good. It was a good workout.